It's showtime. Welcome to Monday Night Live, ladies and gentlemen. Marshall and I are broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Welcome to Monday Night Live, guys. Hope everybody's had a good month in August. If you missed the webinar last week that I ran, Transforming Your Social Media in 30 Days, go check that puppy out on YouTube. That got a lot of positive feedback. I'm very pleased with the feedback, and I've decided to do more webinars. I've got one coming up on Wednesday, which is about how to batch create content, how to create a month's worth of content in 30 days. So if you think that'll be valuable, join us on Wednesday at, I think it's 5 p.m. But YouTube's the best place because you can set reminders there. Make sure you subscribe and turn the notifications on, but we'll also be broadcasting that on Facebook and LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, drop in the chat. I want to hear in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm always fascinated to see where our guests are coming from. And while you're onto it, our next guest is an expert in transformational leadership, but he's really a business coach in, I think, in all kind of areas. Like I've never met anyone that has done as much personal development as Dave Clare, who's going to be joining us. A lot of you may have followed him on LinkedIn and Instagram. He's very active on the social channels, and I was lucky enough to be on his podcast, the Evolution of Business show recently. Lee, thank you for your question. Batch create. So what I mean by that is when you create enough social media posts for the entire month and you organize it, plan it, and create the schedule all within one afternoon, in one day, rather than thinking what to post each and every day, without any plan or strategy in place. Mel is sitting at her daughter's footy training in Sydney. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're paying attention to the game, Mel. All right, guys. Who else we got? Come on, drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. I also want to talk quickly just about the Social Media Marketing Awards. I was fortunate enough to be in the finals for the best use of LinkedIn for Monday Night Live, which is this series, and also for LinkedIn versus Instagram. And West Australian came in to interview Brooke Volinovich and I. Was it last Thursday or Friday? And we thought we'd be in the newspaper on Saturday. And we went and bought the paper. I bought 2 copies. I went through every single page, and we weren't in there. So we're hoping that one day this week we're going to be in the West Australian newspaper. All right, let's move on to Dave Clare, who's also tuned in on the chat. As I told you guys, he's active on social media. We've got someone here at University Hall. Ethan, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Who else we got on the call? All right, I'm bringing Dave in, guys. Give him a warm Monday Night Live welcome. There he is. What a privilege to have you here, mate, with your new setup with your lighting and your backdrop. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. Man, absolutely. My first live show I've ever done with someone else's, and it's Monday Night Live. You don't know how excited I am to be here on Monday Night Live with you and get to actually showcase the whole new studio setup too.
It looks brilliant. Well, Dave, a lot of the guys tuning in are entrepreneurs or, at least interested in business. And what's always interesting is to hear the stories of the guests that I have on. I always find that it's fascinating to hear, the stories. It often comes from a lot of failures or desperation or inspiration. Tell us a bit about your story. I know that you migrated to Australia when you were a teenager from Canada. Yep. When did your entrepreneurial journey start?
My entrepreneurial journey didn't actually start until I left Australia to go to Papua New Guinea, then came back from Papua New Guinea to Australia, then went back to Canada. So it didn't really start until 1999. Okay. So, which may sound like a long time ago for a lot of people, but for me at my age, that was, I was like 33 at the time, I think. So probably about your age or maybe slightly older than you are right now.
I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm not that young. You're very kind.
Yeah. So that's when I finally, I had this moment in my life. I worked in a lot of different public, private sector organizations in a lot of leadership roles, and that little whisper, that little voice everyone talks about in the back of your head, it was there, and I just decided I wanted to determine what I was worth, if you like. You always do when you take a job. Taking a job is a wonderful thing in many ways, and you trade time for money. But I wanted to see what I could do, what I could produce, when I total control and build something myself. And so that was why I decided to start my entrepreneurial journey. And it was an epic failure, like within the first 3 months. It was. It was quite funny. It was a good learning exercise for me, that I learned. I rested on my laurels. I was very capable in the organizations I worked in, had tremendous success in everything that I'd done in terms of careers and stuff like that. But here I am at 33 years of age. I joined what they called Leadership Management International at the time, which is I bought my license to utilize the tools from probably then the world's largest personal and organizational development company. And I went out and was going to go and sell success and goal setting and all the stuff I'd already learned through my life, and that I'd had tremendous joy working at from a career point of view. And here I was going to run my own business and go and help people do that. And this 33-year-old guy showing up to these massive big companies with BMWs and Mercedes all parked at the front, and I showed up in my $3,000 Ford Laser, which I would park around the back. And
you're joking. A Ford Laser was my first car.
Right, all great entrepreneurial stories start with a Ford Laser.
The stereo was worth more than the car was, but anyway.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it at all. But I realized that I had a massive hit of like my self-image, my self-confidence took a beating. Like all of a sudden, who am I, this guy going into work with these successful entrepreneurs and help them achieve greater success in their lives? So that was a really tough start for me, and I got really anxious and nervous and frustrated and challenged, and virtually put everything at risk with my family, because we'd only just moved to Canada. We had to rent a place. We'd sold our house in Australia to buy the license and do all this sort of stuff. So there was only so much cash left to live. But I'm like, I'm going to make lots of sales. It'll all be fine. And then about 3 months into it, I hadn't closed a single deal, and it was October 1999 when I'm sitting there with enough money left in my account to pay 1 month's rent and maybe some food for the month, and wondering what the heck I've done to my family. I had my then wife and my 2 kids. Sitting, and I've told the story numerous times in other situations, but sitting on the floor there, bawling my eyes out about midnight, leaning up against my kids' beds and going, what have I done to my kids? What have I done to my family? I got to go get a job. And I think there's a moment like this, and I share this only because I think there's moments like these for all of us as entrepreneurs, where we, it's the test. I always say, they say the universe, set your mind to something, the universe gives you all the things you want to achieve it. I think, that's crap. What happens is that you set your mind on something, you go after it, the universe throws all the crap at you to see how serious you are about it. And if you pass the test, then it goes here. And then it gives you all the things that you want or need. And so there I was, thinking, what if I actually quit? And a really important lesson here for me is like, I should quit. I should go get a job. And then that voice again in the back of my head said, Dave, but what are you teaching your kids if you quit when things get tough? And that for me was one of the biggest learning points for myself. I said, don't. I've said, like, don't sit there and try to do something different. Evolve to be something different. I need to, instead of quitting, what I needed to do was ask myself to be more. And I was working hard and everything like that. So I was doing more, but I wasn't becoming more. So I was resting low, I was just working more hours, trying to do more of the same stuff to get there. And I wasn't evolving. So then I had to go and look at, what is the next evolution of me and who am I becoming? And I guess that's sort of where a lot of the work that I do today, I'm always reminded of that moment. Anyway, so then I actually, after that, 12 months later, I was Sales Leader of the Year for Canada. One of our clients became Canadian Client of the Year, which went on to win World Client of the Year.
So, hang on. Sorry to interrupt. What made the difference that you went from, being in that situation to being, winning sales awards and things like that? What was it? Was it more activity?
Well,
Was
I had to
it
dig
mindset?
in. I had to shift my thinking, man. I had totally shifted my thinking. You see, and I'm glad you asked that, because I went from what I call starving to serving. To me, it was a shift that I made, where I was starving, and so I really believe that nobody buys from a hungry person. So when you got that salesperson who's that they're looking at you like you're the next meal or you're the next rent check, and they're
Yeah.
and I went from starving to serving, and I realized that I wasn't doing it intentionally, but I was like, oh, I got to close a deal for me. I got to close a deal for me. I need.
Yeah. Mm.
And this is actually when I developed my relaxed selling process. I have a sales process I use, just called relaxed selling, because my mentor at the time, she said, Dave, you just need to relax and just go out and find ways to serve people and to help people. And so then I went out and said, okay, I'm going to give this 4 weeks. I'm just going to go hardcore at this, and I'm just going to go and see how many people I can help. And I just not worrying about me, and I'm just going to ask all the questions I need to ask. I'm going to stop worrying about the things, and I just started looking at ways I could be of service to people and ask the questions. Then when I went in with the service mindset that I didn't care about me, I cared about them, and then that's when I started getting, all of a sudden, got a deal. It was a massive shift to me, going from starving to serving, and then that just went on. And then, of course, man, you got to go back to the time when we didn't have social media back in 1999. Like, I was sitting on the deep freezer and had my fax phone machine and my business directory and a highlighter and a pencil and making phone calls, right? So that's where it all began.
I love that.
Networking. I was going to networking functions, and I know Shield just made a comment. I was networking like a Shil Shangavi. I was going to every event possible. And I had to go within.
Yeah, it sounds like you went from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset, where you were there to just add value, and you kind of put your problems aside for the month, and then they just seemed to sort themselves out. Must have been a lot more enjoyable at those networking functions with that kind of mindset as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was actually nice just to go and with any agenda other than just saying, just trying to understand what people were dealing with, what challenges they were having and stuff like that, and really to find out about them, not even just at a business level, but really even deeper at a personal level. And and just made so many amazing relationships. And when you go there and you're actually, people can tell that you're purely interested in them because you're interested in them, not because you're interested in them for you, you're interested in them for them. It made a huge difference. And then also, it was quite funny because I realized that by doing that, that set up the engagement with the client to such a way where I had a much more deeper and meaningful relationship with my clients, which is why I think they went on to win great awards themselves, because we started with an amazing foundation where the relationship was built on pure care.
Yeah, sure. And while we're on this topic, how have things evolved for you in terms of that all that networking you were doing and making phone calls and so on. Now that you're obviously you've evolved as an entrepreneur, and we've got a lot more tools at our disposal. Is it different now? Do you incorporate? Obviously, you incorporate social media, but how has it impacted your business in the way that you build your brand now?
Yeah, I mean, if I look now, if a business today versus starting it back in 1999 when I was sitting on the deep freezer with my fax phone machine, I always say to people, right now I'm 54 years of age, and here's the exciting part. Anyone, the 25, 35, 40-year-olds who are in business and everything right now, the millennials, let's say I'm a Gen X, and let's say the millennials, I have the exact same opportunity as the millennials do right now. We're all childlike to the internet. We've all come into the internet at the same kind of time, right? And so I look at that now going, I have 36 years of wisdom from when I was 18 to now. And if I take that 36 years of wisdom and I apply it forward, I'll be 90, keep my body and my mind in good state. I could still have a good solid 36 more years. So I can take everything that's available to us today and apply it to my business today. And then what can I do in the next 36 years with all the wisdom I have from the previous 36 years? Yeah. I was just talking to someone about this on LinkedIn today, and I was saying that, with the millennials, we have what they have, but they don't have what I have in terms of the years of experience that I have. So I have just as much
Yeah, I agree.
Like
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, like, I'm just ramping up and other people are winding down.
Yeah, like I wish that mindset existed more. And not just like 53 is still quite young. Quite young. You got plenty of years ahead of you, but even like 60 is no reason why you can't, adapt. And so we see a few people do it, but not enough. I think people seem to have a bias to what worked in the past, and they move from like a growth mindset to more of a fixed one as they get older.
And if you look at this, what we're doing right here, this back in 1999, it would still been somewhat sort of possible with live video conferencing, would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And here, technically, as long as you have a phone or a laptop, you got your internet. I mean, I won't want to say it's free, but it's very low cost. It's low price of entry for you to start a business or to market or promote, or at least market or promote your business, or to network.
Yep.
Like even LinkedIn wasn't even around then, right? And so LinkedIn is a 24/7 online networking event.
Yeah, exactly. And, I used to be a member of BNI before LinkedIn. That's what I compare it to. I always think I had 20 business owners. We met every week. Now I've got almost 700 million. It's crazy.
Like, how cool is that? And so if I take that same approach when I was building my business in the early days with the directory and doing all that sort of stuff, and I engage and I go to functions and I seek to learn about people and who they are and what's important to them, with everything that's available to me today, like I can do it right here from my lounge room, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I don't have to get into my Ford Laser and go for a spin.
So Dave, first of all, like you work with leaders of medium-sized businesses, is it generally, or?
Yeah, small to medium-sized enterprises, like 5, 10, 50 employees.
Yeah, okay.
And what's about 98% of the market.
What's the biggest challenge that they're facing at the moment? Most of your clients, like, what's the problem that you seem to be encountering quite a lot?
Yeah, well, small to medium-sized enterprises, anybody who runs one who's here on the live stream who watches this, I did a case study about 2 years ago with 25 business leaders for 4 months, was in their kitchens, in their engine rooms, like for 4 solid months, working with 25 leaders here in Perth, just to find out, to answer that question. And there was actually, whilst every business has had different challenges, it turned out there was actually quite amazing. There was 4 common challenges that they all had after I mapped out all the case studies, and it usually still exists today. And number 1 was a lack of clear goals and expectations across the organization. Number 2 was a lack of accountability. Number 3 was a lack of culture and strategy alignment. They had like a culture over here and a strategy over here. And then the last thing was a lack of leadership depth and strength within their organization. They weren't nurturing new leaders.
Yeah, right. Interesting. And we talked briefly before we went live about values and values within. I guess individuals have values, but so do organizations, don't they?
Yes.
And
they should.
Now, look, I think that there's a lot of organizations, correct me if I'm wrong, that have values that they just decided and created them at some point during their business's evolution. I don't know if I can use that word. And I guess it may influence how they hire people, but I don't think that necessarily is a reflection of the existing culture. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
I would say it's a fairly accurate statement for a majority of businesses. Unfortunately, most people, like, values was a very popular thing. I'm certainly a very strong on purpose and values, but values are a very popular thing, and it became a bit more of. And please, any branding companies out there, this is not a sledge on branding companies, but a lot of organizations sought out branding companies to get their purpose and their values and get their value statements done up.
Yeah.
And so they almost treated it like it was a marketing exercise, not a cultural exercise to start with. And it's not the branding company's fault. It's just that when you go to a branding company to get your values done, it's to represent your brand.
Yeah.
If you're going to get to represent your culture, because I'm a firm believer that your culture is how we think and feel about our business, right? Whereas brand is how the market and the consumer thinks and feels about our business. And our job is to make those two halves of the heart match, so people fall in love with why we do what we do. So we need to have it as a cultural exercise to speak that to the market, so the market can receive that. So firstly, with values, if you're not leading them, living them, and loving them every day, you can have really crap values, but at least if you're leading them, living them, and loving them, I'd rather see that than magical values that you don't lead and live and love every day. But we went through the time here, whether it's around the world, but definitely here in Australia over the last 10 years or so, where people are getting 10 values, and they became, when you look at all these businesses, Matt, what are some of the most common popular values that you see today?
I guess integrity, results. You see results everywhere. We like to have fun, customer service. I mean, I guess the ones that I've probably looked at are the ones of the companies which are probably doing a better job, I think. But those are some of the values that come to mind.
But take a look at this. So you've named a couple of really good ones there. So for me, when I look at values, I think your values should be the unique thinking of your organization. How we think determines how we act, right? So our values should be the unique thinking. So if you look at it, I'll just give you a couple of key points here that, Simon Sinek will tell you that people buy why you do what you do. But I'll tell you that your values are why they buy it from you. Okay, because your values are how you uniquely think about that problem that you're passionate about solving in the world, which is your purpose. And so it should be the unique thinking. And if you go back to what I call, and I don't want to swear on your thing here, but what I call SHIT values, and it's an acronym. Yeah,
you can swear. Mate, that's
I'm
a soft swear
Canadian, right? So I better get permission.
Go for it.
But anyway, they're what I call SHIT values, which is service, honesty, integrity, trust. And and it's because those, to me, should be the price of entry into having a business. They shouldn't be what makes your business unique. If, service, honesty, integrity, trust, what makes your business unique, well, we're all screwed, basically. Come on. Like, that should be price of entry to business. So tell me, how do you uniquely think about it? And that's where we should be looking at values. And it should be the 4 to 6 core values, the core unique thoughts that we have. And I assure you, every business has a unique way it thinks about doing things. That we should be looking at, and that's where I challenge leaders to really get real on their values, and that's about the unique thinking of their organization, because that's actually why people buy. And I know, once again, you can look at Simon Sinek's work, and he talks about the infinite game, which is really cool, which is an ongoing thing. So there's no winning and losing per se, but the organization that wins more often is the one that outbehaves the other one. What drives organizational behavior? How we think, which is values.
Yeah. And consistency. Like, I talk a lot when I'm doing my marketing stuff, like I talk a lot about knowing who your customer is. And I like to go very specific with it. So there's like an actual avatar, and his name's John, and his kids go to this school, and all the details. But John would ideally have the same values as the organization, or very similar values. But so that it allows you can create your marketing, from your values, and it allows you to be consistency rather than like, okay, things aren't working, let's now target this person, and and your values shift. You lose trust, you lose your reputation with the people that you have started a relationship with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If you got your values right, they shouldn't change too much anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, once again, and values are how we think. This is how we think around here. We're not telling our people what to think. We're just saying, here's how we think around here. And that should drive the right behavior, because how I think determines how we act. I mean, these are fundamental. Like, I don't get too complicated. One of my core values is simplicity, right? Which is freedom from complexity. So I look to simplify everything that I do. Yeah.
Okay. And I hear that you're doing quite a lot at the moment. You seem to be very busy. Business is good. You're leading into the question I want to ask you. Do you have any tips that may be helpful to the audience about how to manage your time and how to avoid procrastination?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things. Firstly, time management's bullshit. You can't manage time. Grab your watch, stop it from ticking, but time still keeps going. So first, understand that time management is one of the silliest concepts I've ever heard. To me, it's self-management. It's how do you choose to manage yourself using that as a resource? And please understand that time was created by man. Dogs don't understand time. It was a human thing that was created. All right.
Tell me about it. Yeah, I got one pulling up my leg at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So you could walk out of the room and come back in, and they think you've been gone for a week, and it's like, oh my God, you're back. I never thought you'd ever return. Right.
Yeah.
So time is just a concept created by man, or humans. So firstly, if you also understand that you are the creator of your own time. In terms, you have the same, as everyone tells you, the same minutes as Richard Branson, all this sort of stuff. There's whatever it is, there's 1,680 minutes in the day. But what it is how you choose to spend that, right? And so it's how do you make your choices? And please understand that when people says, "Oh, I don't have time for that," yes, you do have time for that. You're just choosing to spend it on something else, which is okay. And when we decide to take ownership of it, so take ownership of all your time. Like, oh no, I don't have time to get that done today. Yes, you do. You're just not going to do it today, and that's okay because you think that whatever else you're doing is more of a priority. So firstly, that's my concepts around time. And I'm very confident in terms of what I do is I create what I call my high payoff activities. So I write down, the 6 behaviors that will drive the best results for my organization or for the work that I'm doing. And then I paint what I call my time picture, my ideal week. And I go, if I had the perfect week, here's what it would look like. And I have that and I map it out and then I put it into my calendar in advance. So I know here's the best time for me to have one-on-ones with my clients. Here's the best time for me to do prospecting and marketing. Here's the best time for me to do, research or strategy work or whatever my high path activities are. And I put it in my calendar in advance because now I can make values-based decisions. When I go, oh, somebody wants to do this, I've already got something there. It forces my mind to have to make a decision. If I have nothing in there, I go, oh, whatever I feel like, I just go do that. So then now to procrastination, I'm an amateur procrastinator, not a professional procrastinator. So there's procrastinators and amateur procrastinators, mate. I'm okay at it. I'm not great at procrastination. But what is procrastination really? Putting something off. Well, the reason why you're putting something off is because either you're not motivated. People say, "Oh, I don't have motivation to do it." No, you have motivation to do something else.
One I come across a lot is wanting everything to be perfect, and this shows up a lot on social media. People want their posts to be perfect, and I think that perfection is a form of procrastination. It's funny, we're all chasing to be perfect, but what works on social media is imperfect. And
productivity is far more better than perfection, mate. Perfection is the direction, not the destination.
Yeah, agree.
And I think Mark's made a comment down here that it's figuring out what he's made a really good comment there. It's about really getting clear on what matters most. And this is like to say one of the things is if you're very clear on what matters most in terms of the results you'd like to achieve and the behaviors that will drive those results, and you block those things out, and you've got a far better chance. Will it be perfect? No. Does it mean you'll eliminate procrastination? No. Does it mean you'll still chase perfection? Probably. But does it mean you'll have a better chance of getting more done of the things that matter to you and achieving the results that'll make your life a lot better and happier? Sure does.
Yeah, absolutely. What's 168? What's that? What that mean?
168, I think, is the number of hours in the week.
Okay.
Looking 140 minutes in a day and 168 hours in a week, and
Jeez, it's not as many as I thought it'd be. Paul, would you say process is a key part of success? Good question from Paul in England.
Yes. You know what? There's a great book out there, not mine, unfortunately, but still it's a great book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And
you mentioned this to me before.
Yeah, and I've studied this before. Like, I just love it. Like, if I'd only stopped at this one point, it would have been a great book anyway. And the whole book was great. But James Clear said that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We only fall to the level of our systems. Okay. So process is absolutely critical. I mean, that's why you have a process or a system, whether you want to call it a process or call it a system. To me, they're very similar things. But if you take a systematic approach to your way you self-manage in terms like I have a system, I work at what the goals are that I want to accomplish. What are the right behaviors that would drive that? Then I say, when's the best time to do those? And I map that into my planner, into my calendar. And then I make decisions on that as I move forward. And I have the right to move those around if I need to, but at least I now take the way my brain works and go, I force it to, rather than just doing what it feels like, it has to make a values-based decision. Like it's a system.
Yeah, you've mentioned it. You mentioned a couple of good resources there, Atomic Habits, and you mentioned Infinite Game earlier. I know you just still do a lot of personal development, Dave. Is there any books that you recommend that you think are more relevant now than ever, or you're reading at the moment that you think would be good for the audience?
There's a couple of classics that, like The Alchemist, is always a favorite of mine.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Like Santiago's journey, like there's so many lessons in that. It's nuts. Paul Coelho. Anyway, the book's called The Alchemist.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it either. Yeah. Yep. Another one.
And one of my favorite books that I have always had since it came out, I've had numerous copies of it. I just, every time I read it, make my notes. I then pass it on, then I buy another copy of it. But I have one now signed by Mr. Tom Peters himself, who I got to meet last year. It's called Reimagine. And he wrote this book back in 2001, I think it was. He talked about, reimagining the way we do business. And he predicted almost all this disruption that we've had. Like, this was written, please understand, written before like Facebook and Uber and Twitter and all these sort of disruptive organizations came along. He could see there was going to be massive disruption coming along, and he was challenging people back then to disrupt their organization, to reimagine the way you do business, reimagine who you serve, reimagine how you serve them.
And we've all had to do that, with COVID, haven't we?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's pretty much come down to is to think about how you can serve your clients better given the current climate. You be forced into adaptation, weren't we?
Absolutely. A lot of people are forced and thrust into evolving, if you like. The universe has a way of making people move when we're not moving. To wrap up on the sense of books and resources, though.
Yeah, keep going.
I'm a firm believer, though. Just like I have Audible, so I listen to whatever book on Audible, and if I like it, I'll buy the hard copy. But I listen to it like 3 or 4 times in a row. Like I believe, that we should go deeper in our learning, not wider. So I find a lot of people, like read this book, then read the next book, then read the next book, and we're barely just sort of skimming it. So like Atomic Habits, I must have listened to at least 4 times. Legacy, the story about the All Blacks, I think there was 5 or 6 times because it was all about culture. And so I like to go deep into a book rather than go wide. So I'll listen to it 3 or 4 times in a row, and if I love it, then I'll go and buy the copy of it, and I make my notes. And once you get to personal development, that's my process.
Yeah. I had I think it's Blinkist is the website where they condense a book into 15 minutes, and I went through a phase of like listening to a couple of books a day, and then I thought, I can't keep doing this. I'm not learning anything. It's just I'm just skimming the back of books, really.
That's right. And for me, if you find a book that resonates with you, listen to it or read it again and again and again, like 3, 4, 5 times. It may sound silly, but like go deep into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to us just briefly about the what you think of as well, how you describe business evolution and the difference between that and the focus of what most entrepreneurs is, which is growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. It's a great one because it's certainly something that really important to me. Is there's nothing. Please understand, I'm about to preface this. There's nothing wrong with growth as part of your business strategy, but if it's your only strategy, I think it's a very dangerous one because most organizations have you got a growth mindset. We're just focused on growing our business, and that's okay because growth usually is about doing more for more. The challenge with that is if you're not evolving, you could actually grow into obscurity or irrelevance. So a lot of businesses, let's say back here in Australia, especially here in West Australia, where we're both located, from 2000 to 2015, there was a construction boom in mining, right? And things were going, people thought it was a mining boom, but it's really a construction boom in mining because it was all the mines were being built and people thought it was the endless boom and they were just growing and adding to their businesses. But they weren't evolving. They were just tacking more on and bringing on more people and more service and just serving more people. And then all that got taken away when the constructions were over, and many people didn't have the foresight to see that was going to happen. And then they have all this capacity that will underutilized capacity. Now they have all this asset sitting there to do nothing with because they hadn't evolved as an organization. And so to me, you have to look at that. And it's, I work with leaders to help them create evolution as the natural state of their business, where you can have growth phases, but you're always constantly evolving to stay relevant in the hearts and minds of the people that you choose to serve. Blockbuster had its best year the year before it went under.
Did it? I didn't know that. Well, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
And they lost relevance. And and this is the funny thing is, and I talk a lot about this at a lot of workshop stuff that I do, is that being aware, they were aware of disruption, for example, and just like most businesses, like, they were being aware of it is fine. Trying to ride the wave is fine. But if you don't do something about it, don't be upset when you fade off into the sunset, or, the market swings or shifts and you're not ready for it because you're not flexible. And this is why, do strategic resets every 90 days. Like what's the next 90 days? Focus on the next 90 days. And we're always constantly evolving and stretching and challenging to be able to move quicker, which small business can do, whereas big business struggles to move at that rate. But if you're just focused on growth, you're just doing more for more. And which is great in phases, but you've got to make sure that that's under the base of evolution. Because Darwin theories say, not the strongest, the fattest, the fittest, the fittest, the fastest, the smartest, the whatever, the biggest that survive. It's the species that are able to adapt to their ever-changing environment. And are we in our ever most changing environment now? We are in our generation's most uncertain of times. And if you're in the most uncertain times and you're focused on growth, be mindful that uncertainty can shift very quickly.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Blockbuster, the best year before they started going under. Yeah, it just goes to show. I mean, they were growth focused, weren't they? They weren't, but they weren't paying attention to what was going on in the world.
But they were making money. That's the thing. They were so busy making money. But this is how we make money around here. And Kodak. And I interviewed Jeff Hazlett, who was the CMO for Kodak Eastman at the time when all this was happening, and he shared some tremendous insights. And Kodak, he said, it was so big, and we were so doing all this sort of stuff that it was just no physical way that Kodak was going to be able to do that in their minds at the time.
Yeah.
And amazing. They were so big.
Yeah.
And so for small businesses, entrepreneurs out there, never lose your edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great when things are coming in and grow with it, but make sure that's on a base of evolution, that you're constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's great advice. Yeah. Okay, Dave. Well, look, we've got a bit over time, so we better wrap up this episode of Monday Night Live. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and if you do have questions for Dave, he's pretty active on social media, so I'm sure he'll be able to respond to some of those. Dave, where's the best place for people to find you online? Is it Instagram or LinkedIn? Where do you prefer?
All the socials, but the easiest place to go to is just my website, daveclare.com, DAVECLARE.com. And actually also on their net, there's a link there for a free 30-minute session. I do 4 a week.
Yeah.
So anybody wants no obligation, no expectations, no sales pitch, no nothing. Just a whiteboard session with me, 30 minutes. They can just put it there and they can request one. It would be a couple of weeks from now, but yeah. Yeah,
highly recommend taking that up, guys. Dave is a genius at this kind of stuff. Thanks so much for joining us, mate. I'm going to try and get along to your event on Wednesday if there's room for me. I'd love to join you on that one. Everybody else, thanks for listening and watching, and have a great week in business. Go out there and change some lives, and we'll see you next week on Monday Night Live. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.